Hello and welcome to the Premier Football Podcast. As always, I'm Rafe Garland and I'm joined here, fresh from tree felling, Joseph Doherty. As we approach the busy Christmas period with multiple games happening through the week, we've decided to abandon Rafe's reviews early on in the week and focus on a joint reviews and preview show today. We're going to get straight into having a look at the action from last weekend before we talk about the upcoming action midweek. What a time to be alive. Joe, before we get into it, how are you today?
I'm well, Rafe. Big fan of Christmas.
You weren't struck by any falling trees earlier?
I wasn't. Actually, I was at a conference all day again. I wasn't out in the woods chopping down trees. This is just a nice shirt that I like to wear in the winter time. I'm not a lumberjack.
Thanks for clarifying. So, last week I said that I expected Man City to lose on the road to Newcastle because they seem to be entering kind of a mini crisis. They seem to be a bit shot on confidence. Pep was getting a bit narky in the media. They didn't lose the game, but they did draw it.
Yeah.
Is it a worrying time for Pep? Obviously, 11 points off Liverpool at this stage?
Yeah. No, I actually put a poll out on our Twitter earlier on today, asking like a good few of them, but one of the ones I put out was have Pep City run their course or something in that effect. I think like 70% of people were saying yes. And I wasn't surprised that they drew with Newcastle. And let's get things straight. This isn't a great Newcastle side either. This is a bang average Steve Bruce, lucky to stay up Newcastle United.
That point lifts them to 14th on 16 points.
Like, they'd be very happy if they finished in 14th place. It's all about survival for them this year. And for they are an established side, like in the league. For an established side and a big club like that to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Newcastle fans, but to be given the situation that they're in with the ownership and with the manager they have and the funds that have been made available over recent years, like to be 14th, to be staying in the league is probably a good achievement for them. So for City to go there and drop more points, it's a bit of a disaster, isn't it?
Well, yeah, look, I called it a mini crisis a minute ago. Look, a draw on the road in the Premier League traditionally hasn't, especially at a tough place to go like St James's, wouldn't have necessarily been a bad result. But just because of the standard that Liverpool and City have set for themselves over the last couple of years, we call, like, City beat Chelsea, who were second going into last weekend. They beat second place last weekend. They qualified for the Champions League knockout round midweek.
Well,
and they got a point.
It wasn't
over the weekend. And that's now a mini crisis, and people are saying that Pep has run his course at City because of it. Are we being knee-jerky, or is there such an obvious decline from where they were last year?
Yeah, City have won the league the last 2 years, as we mentioned on last week's pod, collecting 200 points over the past 2 seasons. Yeah. So their standard is the best we've ever seen in the Premier League in terms of getting points.
And it should be, because of the squad they've assembled. The most expensive squad in Premier League history.
I actually don't think that they had such a great window this time around. They're clearly missing a centre-back. After Company left, he wasn't first choice last year, but he played, I don't know how many, probably more than half of the games in the Premier League.
And he played all the big games.
And he did. That was it. Because of his injury record, he took him out of the team when
they could afford to.
And then he played. You think of that game against Leicester where he scored that pile driver from 30 yards out, and that effectively won them the title in the end because they were going nowhere in that game. They just couldn't break Leicester down. And he came up with the goods, and to not replace him, to not bring in, not even an experienced centre back, but an up and coming, like, third or fourth choice centre back.
Even the way Liverpool did, they signed that 17-year-old Dutch centre half, and Van der Berg, and he's not quality, but even their planning, they know that the centre halves they have aren't going to be there forever. Van Dijk is, I think, 28. He's not old. Matip in his late 20s. That the old Lovren, I think, is in his 30s at this stage now.
Yeah, I think he is.
Liverpool have always been a young team. Well, not always, but obviously for the last 3 or 4 years have been a young side. Yeah. They're starting to identify areas of the pitch that they're aging in. Now, obviously, Silva's in the end of his contract now, and Foden looks like a natural successor coming in next year to fill that spot. So they've done it in some areas, but surely Kompany leaving last year couldn't have taken them on the hop that much. They said they were priced out of Maguire. I think they were expecting to sell Leroy Sané.
Yes.
But obviously his injury stopped that move from happening. Is it a case where that they've just left themselves short? They've overspent in the 2 or 3 years gone by, focusing too much on getting the team to where it is now, that they don't have the funds in reserve. I don't know how seriously they take the financial fair play regulations, but they said this year they couldn't sign Harry Maguire because of financial fair play.
Well, if you notice about City, I think Mahrez is their record signing, and he was for £57 million. They quite regularly spend in and around 40-50, but they never go over that.
Yeah,
they never go to the Van Dijk level, to the Maguire level. So I'm not surprised when Leicester slapped an £80 million price tag on Harry Maguire that City dropped out of the race. They just don't go in for those really, really, really expensive players. Overpaying, you might call it for.
And look, United did overpay for Harry Maguire.
Yeah,
let's not get ourselves wrong with that. Like,
of course, but he was under contract. He was relatively young as centre backs go. English, they put a premium on him.
They pay the United tax as well.
And they pay the United tax, of course. And there's also a City tax as well, because they have a bottomless pit of money. But yeah, it's a strange one, because it was if you lose you want to have 4 centre backs going into the season. You really do. So for them to go in with 3 senior centre backs, one of them being Nicolas Otamendi, who's a shadow of the player that he was 2-3 seasons
He is, and
ago.
he's obviously not trusted. He's been left on the bench in favour of Fernandinho quite regularly.
Yeah. And
I think that says everything.
Yeah. The thing is that Fernandinho, he's actually quite good there, but he's not.
He's not a centre half.
He's not Vincent Kompany.
And it also takes him out of that holding midfield role that he's done so well. And I think that no, it's not the issues they've had at centre back. It's the lack of Fernandinho in holding midfield over the last couple of weeks that makes them look like they're not playing the same way.
They were playing Gundogan there the other day, and I think Gundogan's a very talented midfielder.
Of course he is.
But he's not.
Of course he is.
But he's not. He's not an out-and-out holding midfielder. He's more of a number 8.
No, and Pep said recently that he was actually surprised with how well he could do that job. He never pictures him as that type of player. He's never played him there before. He never really saw him playing as a 6, but he's had to do that job of late, and he's done okay. But
okay is not enough when you're chasing that Liverpool side, when you're trying to keep up with them.
Having watched City over the last couple of weeks, Raheem Sterling seems to be on a mission to do everything by himself. They're not scoring that trade book City goal where everyone's on the same page, where they play those passes, it's a dink in behind over the top out wide from De Bruyne or whatever, and it's the wingers cutting it back to the striker.
Yeah.
Gabriel Jesus, I think, hasn't scored in... No, he has scored. I think it's 5 games. I think he's gone 5 games without scoring.
Has he? I must like... Right off the bat, Gabriel Jesus doesn't do it for me. I never got the hype.
Apologies, sorry, he's not gone 5 games. They were playing Newcastle the other day. Yeah. I don't think that in 4 appearances against Newcastle he had not scored against them, whereas Aguero had scored 6 in his last 5 against them. It was something huge like that. There was quite a large difference in the form against Newcastle. I know that's one thing, but you'd obviously prefer to have Sergio Aguero starting as number 9 rather than Jesus.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, never really got the hype around Gabriel Jesus. Couldn't really understand why Firmino was benched for Brazil and they went with Jesus ahead of him at the World Cup and then at the Copa America as well, wasn't it? But as regards to City, I think that's another area where they're a little bit short up front, because if you lose Aguero, I just don't think that Jesus.
No, and look, all strikers have a bad game as well, and I mean if Jesus is not performing after an hour and Pep's looking to his bench,
he doesn't have anything there.
Well, that's it. And I know that obviously if Firmino goes down for Liverpool, maybe Sadio Mane moves in there or Mo Salah, and then they're relying on the other one, and maybe they're short in wide position. So they obviously are unlucky that he's been injured. But at the same time, he's in his 30s, and players in their 30s tend to get injured.
Yeah, for sure. He's played a lot of minutes over the past decade as well. Like he was first choice for Atletico Madrid.
He plays every summer as well, but not every summer, but I mean between World Cups and Copa Americas.
Yeah, they're frequent.
Yeah, and there's a lot of miles as well. Yeah, he's been playing since he was what age?
He would have started as a teenager. Yeah.
He's been on our radar since Atletico.
Yeah, when he would have been
a decade
18,
ago.
19. Yeah, for sure. He was more of a second striker then, but he's really turned himself into this
prolific number 9.
Prolific number 9, complete forward.
Yeah, so look, I'd say we'll come back to City, but while we're talking about it, how do you think they're going to do against Burnley this week?
I'd say they'll win. I'd say they'll be fired up and they'll go to Burnley and win.
Having said that, Burnley have just lost at home.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them in a minute. You do think City will have it in them. We'll come to the previews later, but you do think they'll bounce back with a win?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, look, we'll come to that in a little bit. Speaking of Burnley, they host Palace. No, sorry, they hosted Palace. They were beaten 2-0. Great win for Roy Hodgson. They had gone 5 games without a win. Back to winning ways.
Zaha scored back-to-back goals, and I think that he hadn't scored in the league before.
Yeah.
The weekend before last.
I will say his goal was very soft. Did you see the goal?
I can't remember
Pope
exactly.
was beaten at the near post, low down. Maybe
Right.
he got a soft hand to it. Really should have kept it out. Burnley were probably the better team. They had the better chances. Wood had 2 or 3 that he had to score. I don't know how he didn't score.
Yeah.
Palace had a fortunate goal from Zaha, and then maybe you could say Pope could have done better for the second one as well. It seemed to go underneath him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what Crystal Palace do. They show up. They don't necessarily play the better football, and they nick goals on the break.
Yeah, they grind out results.
They do.
They're very good at that. They're not too dissimilar from Burnley in the way that they like to. Very hard to beat well-drilled sides managed by experienced English managers.
They respectively find themselves 10th and 11th place level on 18 points.
That sounds about right.
It really does.
I don't think they'll be in trouble at all. I don't think they'll be troubling the European places at all. But Zaha, like, very good player. It was strange that he hadn't really scored any. He hadn't scored until he scored against Liverpool. Was it the week before last? And now he's come up with another goal. Do you think he'll be looked at by clubs in January? He's obviously.
It depends on how willing Crystal Palace are to let him go and what the price is. I think that people have seen over the last couple of years that he can be a phenomenal player on his day, but there's always a but about him, that he is inconsistent.
Well, like I said, it took him to late November to register his first goal in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And he would be their main outlet for goals now that Benteke doesn't score and doesn't play anymore.
They had, I think, changed their playing style a little bit at the start of the season. They'd left him out for a couple of games early on to get his head right.
Well, that was because of the Arsenal.
Yeah, and it was. And they I think they adapted their style a little bit and tried to play a bit more direct and use their forwards a little bit more, and you saw AU getting a few goals.
He did well at the start, yeah, but Zaha's their main man. Like they accommodate.
The strikers are scoring fewer goals now, and the wingers are starting to come into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think that because Zaha is starting to get involved now, it's more an indication that Roy Hodgson is starting to trust him a little bit more. Maybe he thinks that his head might be in it actually long term, and maybe he's giving him a bit more responsibility. And he has been playing well. He has been causing defenders nightmares. He's been putting balls into the box. He's been running at them.
Yeah,
I think he still had the most number of complete dribbles.
Just ask me this question. We're in December 2nd. How far away is January at this stage?
Joe, it's a month away.
And what if he put in a great run of form, scored two or 3 goals?
The cynic in you might say that he's been waiting until he's in the shop window.
Yeah. We've seen it before, haven't we?
We have, and there will be certain clubs that would probably be looking to pull the trigger that are short and wide areas.
Certainly would. At the top of the table, you could think of. I think that he could do a job for any of the top 6 sides at the moment.
Who would he start for? He wouldn't start for Liverpool.
Well, the thing with Liverpool are a unique case, and any forward going there knows that they're going to be a squad player. So
yeah,
you have to look a little bit below that then. Chelsea actually, maybe to be fair, he wouldn't get a game at the moment.
No, because
Pulisic has
just
done very well
in that position. In City, I think he'd rotate in and out of City's
I think
team.
that he would. I think he'd definitely get into.
But he'd do a Mahrez's job. He'd maybe start 1 in 3 for City.
But that's the thing with City. You know that unless your name's Raheem Sterling, and even then he doesn't start every game, but he would be the most regular.
He's probably a more talented footballer than Harvey Barnes for Leicester. Actually, yeah, Harvey Barnes for Leicester.
Well,
but Barnes plays within a team. Leicester are drilled in the way that they play. We'll go down the table. Spurs, is he going to get in ahead of Heung-min Son on the left?
He'd get in ahead of Lucas Moura on the right.
I think Jose's a big fan of Lucas Moura.
I don't necessarily think that Zaha is a Jose player.
Is Lucas Moura not Spurs' record signing?
No, and Ndombele is.
Yeah, okay, well the year before. He was signed for big money. I'd be surprised if they left him out completely.
Yeah.
And then we're moving down the table into the likes of Wolves and Sheffield United.
I'm talking about, the big...
Well, we're talking about teams up the table.
The established...
Would he start for Arsenal?
Yes, he'd start on the left for Arsenal. And
so I think that's the big one that's never gone away. The move across London is the one
I think that Arsenal should pursue him. I
think with the players that United have, He may or may not get into that team. He'd push Martial. Martial's probably
in
the
ahead
way
of
out.
Daniel James, wouldn't he? Daniel James has done well, but Wilfried Zaha is a better player than him.
Yeah, well, James plays on the right, Zaha plays on the left.
James, interchangeable.
Yeah. Maybe ahead of Martial is for. Well, Martial's playing as a number 9, and Rashford's actually been starting on the left, and he's probably been United's best player this year.
He's been decent.
I'd say Arsenal is the one that would stand out if he was going to go to a traditional big club.
Or he could go to the likes of Borussia Dortmund. They were.
Well, I think PSG were the ones.
Winger.
Yeah, with the hint of Neymar on the way out at some stage. I mean, Neymar's not going to stay forever.
Yeah.
As soon as Barcelona can afford to buy him back, it looks like they're going to buy him back.
That's it. Yeah.
So he could go and fill those boots in PSG. Not comfortable win for Palace, 2-0. Burnley probably could have done a bit better, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them bounce back in the City game. Burnley is always a tough place to go, but we will get to those previews in a minute. Now, the shock probably of the weekend. I know City was a big one, but this must have taken everybody by surprise. West Ham doing a job in Stamford Bridge, winning there for the first time since 2002.
Yeah, and West Ham hadn't won a game since the 22nd of September, since they beat United.
They'd gone 6 without a win, wasn't it, in the league?
They played a lot of teams in and around them, and then they go and they beat high-flying Chelsea away. Fair play to them. That's a great result. And I did say in my own video last week that they should persevere with Pellegrini, that he has the tools to turn things around, and something they really needed to do was to drop Roberto, and lo and behold they dropped Roberto. They played David Martin, who's a boyhood West Ham fan. I think his father used to play for West Ham.
Interestingly signed from Millwall over the summer.
Yeah, controversial one. You wonder how...
I don't think the Millwall fans would be too happy about it.
No. Obviously there's no love lost there at all between the two.
No, look, there were emotional scenes at the end of the game. I don't think he necessarily played brilliantly or excellently, but they kept a clean sheet in high-scoring Chelsea, free-scoring Chelsea. Now, obviously, Chelsea without their top scorer for the season, Tammy Abraham, Olivier Giroud came in and seemed to be taking a bit of stick online from the Chelsea fans.
Well, he's not and having watched him week in, week out for Arsenal for 5 years, he's a very good player, but he's not a prolific goal scorer. He's not an Abraham.
He's a 1 and 2 rather than
1 and 3.
1 and 3 rather than a 1 and better than 1 and 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's not someone who goes he's very good at running across the front post and getting a flick on either with
or a header.
Yeah, but he's not someone who his positioning, that's his move to run across to the front post. Yeah. Abraham is much more mobile. He's much more intelligent in his.
Abraham's got the same physicality and has the same skill set Giroud has, but he's also got the pace.
And he has that poacher's instinct. Giroud's never had that. Giroud's a fantastic player to work off.
Do you think we could see Michy Batshuayi line up midweek for Chelsea?
Maybe.
They host Villa.
It depends how they want to play. If they want to have the likes of Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi or any of their other wide forwards involved in the game a lot more, then you might look to play Giroud. Because they'll be able to work off them and the central midfielders as well.
And look, this is obviously Chelsea I think have won 1 of their last 5 games, including in all competitions. Right. 2 draws in the Champions League, a loss last week and a loss to West Ham.
To City before and then to West Ham.
It is a mini blip for them.
Yeah, definitely, and
it'll be a real test for Frank Lampard.
For sure. I mean, he's never, it's been, since that opening day defeat to Manchester United, which you could say was unlucky. Yeah. They did lose 4-0, but certainly Chelsea were playing some good football in that match, and they missed a fair share of chances themselves, and United seemed to bury every chance that they had. But it's a genuine test for him.
Now, as an Arsenal fan, this is a difficult question for you.
Yeah.
Spurs are 6 points behind Chelsea at this stage.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to get that 4th place spot? Do you think? Surely you don't believe now that Arsenal are going to challenge for that 4th place spot?
I think anything can happen.
Arsenal are only 1 point behind Spurs,
yeah.
Who are 6 points behind Chelsea.
Yeah.
Do you think anything can happen?
I think
between those 3 teams. You don't think Jose Mourinho, with a little bit more time than whoever comes in at Arsenal, or with that bit of experience on Frank Lampard, you don't think Jose would maybe Spurs would be the favourite for that 4th place now with the squad they have as well?
I need to see more of Mourinho's Spurs. They've had 3 consecutive 3-2 wins.
They have. They've not been
hardly convincing.
Yeah.
They I need to see more of. I need to see.
Well, look, it's the same squad that made the Champions League final last year. Plus, they've strengthened over the summer.
Yeah, and plus they brought in a new manager, but I need to see more of what Jose Mourinho is doing at Spurs.
Well, he's going to tighten up that defence.
Well, they've conceded 6 goals.
They have, games. But that's going to change very, very soon.
Do we? Was he that great defensively with United at the end? They were hemorrhaging goals.
I think he's got better defenders to work with. He's got the defender that he was trying to buy for Manchester United. He's got Alderweireld there.
He does have that. Are his fullbacks any good? I wouldn't say so. Bente is decent defensively, but Aurier, although he's got Aurier going pretty well, going
forwards, and he plays with a symmetrical back three.
Like I said, I need to see more of Jose's Spurs. We've seen 3 games. I need to see more. I need to see how Frank Lampard handles this mini blip, and I need to see what happens at Arsenal.
I'm starting to feel a little bit red-faced already with maybe over the last few weeks talking up Chelsea a little bit too much and ruling out Spurs. I'm not convinced that Arsenal. I know that maybe going forward they've got the best team in terms of the attacking players that they have. But if you look at the balance in the squad with Rudiger still to come back into Chelsea, I think that the other two might have slightly stronger squads at the minute.
Listen to me. Spurs went from 14th to 5th in 2 weeks.
I know it's tight.
This is an insanely tight.
It is absolutely
mid-table, upper to lower mid-table. It's mad.
Right now, who do you back? Who do you if I gave you 500 quid and said you've got to stick this on one of the teams, it'll come back with a few grand for you. Who do you want to make that money for you? Who's buying your Christmas presents like? You don't want to answer.
Yeah, because given his track record and the fact that he does have quite a settled team, I'd probably go for Mourinho.
It looks that way now, even with the 6 points to make up. So Frank does have his work cut out. We'll come to Arsenal a little bit later on, but the more comparison I'm making now is Chelsea and Spurs. Spurs and Arsenal, for that matter, seem to be written out of it. Maybe we said Chelsea have it stitched up. But they don't look so short now, though,
a week ago or so, everyone was saying that the top 4 was what it's going to be. Yeah. I think that, and we were guilty of that as well. And like I said,
Chelsea were very good when they played City, though.
Yeah, they were. But like I said, it's the 2nd of December.
This is a brilliant season, isn't it?
14 games. We have 24 more games.
This is a brilliant. Man, I love football.
That's why we're doing this.
I hope you guys love football as much as we love football.
Absolutely, yeah, it's the best. I genuinely don't know what's going to happen.
No.
I still don't know if Liverpool are going to win.
No, Leicester might win the league.
Yeah, that would be just a phenomenal.
Yeah, look, I know. But you know, Leicester could also finish 10th. Looking at the way the season has gone.
Of course they could. It's just such an up and down. You know.
I've got a good question for you.
Sure.
Eddie Howe has been linked with the Arsenal job. He's been linked with the West Ham job. He's been linked with the Everton job. Now, they are level on points with Pellegrini's West Ham.
Yeah.
Pellegrini's favoured to be sacked before last weekend.
Yeah.
Right, Joe, let me ask you this. Eddie Howe is being considered with jobs all across the league. He's been considered with the Everton job, who are obviously 17th. He's been linked with the West Ham job. He's even been linked with the Arsenal job across multiple outlets, maybe some not as reputable as others, but he does seem to be one of the names that are being considered. Now, Bournemouth are currently 12th on 16 points.
Yeah.
West Ham are currently 13th on 16 points. Is Eddie Howe really doing a good job at Bournemouth? I know that in terms of the money they have and the resources and the squad that West Ham have, they should be achieving probably higher than Bournemouth.
Yeah. I don't think he's that great. I think he's very comfortable at Bournemouth, and I think that if he really wanted to go and test himself, then he would have left already. He would have had his agent go and find him. Well, probably he has a lot of respect for Bournemouth, but if he was really...
Where would be... Is Everton a step up?
Everton's a step up from Bournemouth. Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. Everton have won 9 league titles. They're one of the most decorated clubs in the history. I think a lot of people forget that.
One of the most long-standing.
Yeah. They're a serious. They're a serious club. They're a big club. They should be, I think they're a bigger club than Tottenham Hotspur. They've won 7 more league titles than Tottenham. Like that's a significant amount, isn't it?
It is.
Not to put Spurs down for the sake of it. But
no, they looked at the second longest standing team in the Premier League. That's incredibly impressive. In the top flight of the English league, yeah.
After Arsenal. Last time Arsenal were relegated was in 1913. Bit of knowledge. Anyway, what was your question? Eddie Howe. I don't think he's that great. I think that Bournemouth have never come 7th, have they? They've never done what Nuno's Wolves did or what Dyche's Burnley did.
Seem to have
they come
periods
where they look good and then periods where they fall off. And they're normally around 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th.
They start pretty well. They get a few points on the board. They tail off for a little bit before Christmas. After Christmas, they pull their socks up, get a few more points on the board, so they know they're going to finish top half or at least mid-table.
Yeah.
And then take an early holiday.
He's done a good job because Bournemouth, like, look at the size of I think it's fantastic that a club like Bournemouth are in the Premier League.
Absolutely.
And that in itself is a great job, and him bringing them up the leagues and cementing their place as a consistent fixture in the Premier League is very good.
And they play nice football when they win as well. It's not like a Tony Pulis job.
No, it's really not. It's really not. I don't think that he...
What is the next move for him? Should he want the Everton job?
Yeah, he should. He should be...
Is that the next move for him?
He should be telling his agent, go and get me the Everton...
Would you want the West Ham job or the Everton job?
Everton are a bigger club than West Ham.
West Ham probably have more resources at the minute, though.
No.
I suppose Everton
are owned by Farad Moshiri and Alisher Usmanov, who used to have shares in Arsenal.
Yeah.
They have tons of money. Absolutely tons of money. Definitely the Everton job. This is not putting West Ham down. West Ham are a fine football club, but they're not as big as Everton, even though they have a bigger stadium, the Olympic Stadium. But Everton are one of the biggest clubs in the UK, without doubt.
Don't mind West Ham Stadium. They inherited that a couple of years
ago.
I
know, absolutely. He should be getting his... If he had anything about him and wanted to really progress his career, he'd be getting his agent on the phone and saying, get me an interview for that Everton job, or at least the owners that I'm interested in.
Is that not just modern football though? Is that not careerism? Do you know what? Say maybe he keeps the Bournemouth job for another 20 years. Maybe he slowly builds them into one of the most established Premier League teams. Maybe they slowly start knocking on that door for European places.
Football's moved on from that.
Well,
what's wrong with careerism to wanting to jump into that?
I mean, what's the best way to balance those resources?
How much pressure is on him at Bournemouth compared to what would be on him at Everton?
This is it.
And that, like, surely you want to get out of your comfort zone.
Well, at the same time, maybe he wants to build a dynasty. He wants to build a legacy. He doesn't want to be Roy Hodgson or Sam Allardyce moving from team to team to team to team to team to team to team, get remembered as one of these mercenaries. Maybe he's got a plan for Bournemouth. Maybe he loves the club.
To finish 12th?
Man, with the TV money that's in the league now, the tables are being balanced very, very slowly and surely, and with foreign investment coming into clubs, it's only a matter of time before more money starts getting pumped into every single team in the league.
I just don't think that we have the long-term, like seriously long-term planning exists in football anymore.
Leicester City.
I don't think that they've ever
They won the championship in 2014 and said that they had a 5-year plan to break into the top 5. They've signed young English players. They've established a quality scouting network. They've not spent a whole lot of money. They've assembled one of the best sides in the Premier League with one of the best up-and-coming managers.
That's a 5-year plan. When were Bournemouth promoted to the Premier League? I think it was about the same time.
Oh, I'm not saying Bournemouth have planned well. Like, planning does exist.
No, of course you have to plan. I never said that planning doesn't exist. I said that seriously long-term planning is like...
in terms of managers rather than
20 years.
At manager level.
Yeah.
Well, I think Jurgen Klopp is a good example of a manager that's planned over 5 or 6 years.
I don't think that he has because he's
adapted well, hasn't he?
He gave himself his first season as a free hit. Then he gave himself the next season to get into the Champions League, and the next season was challenge for a title. Season after that, which is this season, is to win the league. And so far, it's working out perfectly. Mm-hmm. So you can see, and literally, everyone could look at Jurgen Klopp at that time and be like, "That is what he needs to do."
And in terms of development of playing styles and change of transfer policy,
out his squad. Well, the change in transfer policy was actually unexpected because he came out and he said, "If I'm forced to sign players for the amount of money that Paul Pogba is going for, I'm no longer in a job."
Yeah, he said he'd walk away from football.
Hypocrite.
Hypocrite. Yeah, hypocrite.
Yeah.
We still fucking.
I understand.
We love you, Jurgen.
Do we?
Man, of course. Well, I do. I don't know about you, but I don't know how you can't.
Well, I think the Premier League football is a better place for people like.
What a fantastic time to move on to Liverpool against Brighton. 2-1 Liverpool in a game that they did seem to be cruising in. 2 goals from Virgil van Dijk in the first half. Balls in from Alexander-Arnold. 2 set pieces. Late on in the game, Alisson handballed outside the box. Straight red card. He's going to miss the derby. While Adrian was setting up his wall for half an hour, Dunk took a quick free kick and put it into the far corner.
Yeah, and do you know who was refereeing that game?
I do. It was Martin Atkinson. Funnily enough.
Yeah, it was. Listen, I've no problems about taking a quick free kick.
Yeah, go on.
I you're allowed to do it.
You are allowed to.
We've seen some great. Didn't Gary McAllister years and years ago score a great quick free kick where he everyone thought he was going to cross it in. It was from really far away for Liverpool, of course, and he just took a quick free kick and he just clipped it into the near post from about 30 years out.
Quick free kicks are fantastic.
Yeah.
What I will say, though, is that under the new laws in the Premier League this year, you can't have opposition players in the same wall or in the same line as the wall of the defending team.
Yeah,
and the ball
should have been retaken.
The ball has travelled under two Brighton players that are connected to the side of the wall.
This comes back to something that we spoke about on a podcast maybe a month ago, that the laws of the game currently are so...
They're all over the shop.
Yeah, they are. They've been changed, and I don't even think that the referees have got a clear grasp of what's happening, or the linesmen. But how that wasn't reviewed on VAR, that's...
Because there was nobody would have thought about it. It was only picked up afterwards.
But isn't this where we've discussed in recent weeks, and I've seen it on Twitter from some people as well, that if you have a review, is it a review or a call? Yeah. Like you can...
Yeah, but at the same time, I spoke about this quite passionately a couple of weeks ago and said that if the players on the pitch aren't appealing for it...
Yeah, then you shouldn't.
And the Liverpool players didn't seem to have a problem with it at the time either. Maybe Adrian was pointing it out, I'm not sure. Maybe if there was reviews in place, he would have called the captain over and said, but...
Yeah.
I'm not sure that anybody copped it at the time.
Yeah.
And it did seem to be a violation of the laws. And another good example of that was actually in the Wolves-Sheffield United game.
Right.
Did you see the goal that seemed to strike the arm of... Oh, who was the Wolves attacking player? Anyway, in the assist for the goal, went round the player while he was running, gangly arms all over the place. His hand actually seemed to brush the ball on the ground before he squared the pass. And it wasn't noticed. And VAR said that even though they checked the goal, they allowed it because they didn't have the right camera angle to see the handball at the time.
Right, but they had the right
camera angle to see... They came out afterwards and for the first time admitted that VAR has made a mistake.
That's fantastic.
Well, it is and it isn't.
No. It's fantastic because it's got us talking about VAR making mistakes. So now, hopefully, there can be an open discussion about how to improve VAR because for the
Premier League had pretended it was unflappable for a while.
Exactly, it was just going. It was like this is God's law kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully that will bring about some changes in VAR because by God they need to.
Yeah, massively. And at the same time, VAR has worked well. Obviously, look, Liverpool. I'm not a Liverpool fan complaining about VAR this season. You know, we've had our ups and our downs. And I think in both games against Napoli, we've had complaints about VAR. In the Champions League, it's left us in the position that we're in. Firmino had a goal rule offside for his armpit. They've obviously been lucky in some games. Arsenal benefited massively from it.
Yeah, well, there was clear encroachment
upon review. Last season, I don't think you would have got that.
Because the VAR didn't exist last year.
This is it. So it does come around for teams, and I think as an Arsenal fan, probably this weekend you're happy that it was in operation.
I'm happy that it was in operation. Yeah.
So it does need so much work though, and it is a teething period.
No. It is, and we all want it to work. Yeah. We all agree that you should have that the correct calls should be made.
Definitely.
For sure. So VAR has been nothing short of an abomination to start this Premier League season, but if we can work through it and get through it, and the people in power can turn it into the useful tool that it should be, then I think that everyone will be all for it. Yeah.
Here we are slowly making our way through these. Spurs Bournemouth, we'll talk about it very quickly. Joe, you called this bang on the head. You called 3-2 Spurs.
Yeah, they love a 3-2. Mourinho hasn't quite sussed them out yet. His squad, I don't think that he quite knows what. No, that's not exactly right. He knows what he wants to do with them, but it's going to take time for the players to be able to apply themselves. And I'm not necessarily sure if these players are going to be the ones that he wants long term. I'm sure that some of them are, but there are some that won't. Mourinho is he knows what he wants. He really does. He knows exactly what he wants. And I'm sure that he's pretty happy with this Spurs squad, but at the same time, there are players there that
he's got no use for. He seems to be totally against signing Lo Celso on a permanent basis.
Yeah, he's not his type of player.
No.
He's just not his type of player.
How much has he got out of Dele Alli, though?
Dele Alli is a prime Mourinho player.
Isn't he?
He is a little shit.
And he's 6'3" as well.
He's a big lad. He puts himself about. He needs to be nasty. I think that Pochettino...
He's a more mobile Marwan Fellaini, isn't he?
He is. He's a threat, and I think Mourinho's going to rile him up and really get him, because he looked lost under Pochettino.
He did.
Pochettino was, like, we've been to Argentina, and Argentina's a beautiful country, but it has a reputation. My favorite Argentinian player growing up was Ariel Ortega, who got sent off in the '98 World Cup for headbutting Edwin in the quarterfinal, where Bergkamp scored that great goal to put the Netherlands.
I just like Zanetti was my favorite.
Yeah, but they're a fiery bunch. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And Pochettino is quite an anti-Argentinian.
He's a pacifist, like.
He is. Yeah. He's a soft.
He's almost like a big brother that you had so much respect for until you grew up and you were an adult too, and then you looked at him and said, "What?
Yeah,
this lad."
He's not a mean guy. Like, he's a very soft-spoken, kind of nice, gentle soul. I mean, I'm sure he can get angry when he needs to be, but I don't like, as regards to Dele Alli, I don't think he was quite the right person to manage him and to get the best out of him. Yeah. And I think that Mourinho, without a shadow of a doubt,
we'll come back to Spurs in a little bit and we'll talk about their game midweek. We've obviously spoken about Bournemouth already. Southampton, Watford, massive 6-pointer at the bottom of the table.
Great result for Southampton and for Ralph Hasenhüttl, and
equally poor result for Watford.
Yeah, and they've dismissed Quique Sanchez Flores, so they've made 2 managerial changes now.
That is the quickest that a team has ever made 2 changes in the Premier League. The previous record was the 8th of December, set by...
Was it not? Did Charlton not sack Ian Dowie and Les Reed? Les Reed is the shortest. He lasted less than a month.
He may have, but they didn't get rid of the 2 of them earlier than... I read today it was the second.
Right.
The second quickest. The 8th was the quickest. Who was it? Somebody got mutual consent very early on in the season. I don't know. I think I remember Bob Bradley a couple of years ago not lasting very long for Swansea. Bob Bradley not lasting very long. Yeah, look, who's favourite to come in for Watford? I think the bookies have
Chris Hughton.
Chris Hughton is favourite. Yeah,
I think that he'd be a good candidate.
Are they planning to go down by bringing him in though? He's a good parachute manager in case they do go down. He's the type of manager that could take them back up.
Well, that's the thing.
He's got Premier League and Championship experience.
You don't want to bring in a manager who's going to leave if they get relegated.
Well, this is it.
You want to bring in a manager who's...
You saw what Rafa did at Newcastle, where he took them straight back up.
Exactly. Yeah. And you saw what Marco Silva did at Hull, where he got the fuck out of there as quickly as possible.
Hughton did it at Newcastle as well, didn't he? He went down and took them back up as well.
No, Hughton... Shearer took them down, and Hughton...
Oh, God,
Hughton was only even...
The Michael Owen at the end...
Michael Owen was saying not to play, asking to not be played in case he got injured and didn't get a move away.
Awful.
Absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
And we'll have to do a podcast about Newcastle someday, because it's a great...
Watford have really missed Troy Deeney this season.
Big time. He's their talisman.
They find themselves on 8 points after 14 games.
Yeah, with a gap of 6 points to 17th place Everton, and
you have to expect that Everton are going to go up from that.
You would, yeah. However, they probably need to. We'll come to Everton in a bit.
We'll talk about that.
But in regards to Watford, as far as I'm concerned, they're a very well-run club, and I'm so surprised at this, because they're supposed to be the club. The way that they have their structure in place with the men behind the scenes. Yeah, it's run by an Italian group. That they can interchange managers. It doesn't matter if a manager leaves.
It doesn't. But the issue is that I don't think they've invested in the playing staff. Sarr scored his first goal for Watford the other day.
Yeah,
the striker.
And signed from Rennes.
Yeah, and he's their record signing, and maybe he is going to take off, and maybe he might keep them up this year. But I think they put all their eggs in that basket.
Well, they signed Danny Welbeck on a huge salary on a free transfer.
Who knows why?
Jesus Christ, with his injury record, you wouldn't...
Southampton had a goal scored by Danny Ings. And I think he'll be the difference. I think they'll stay up because of Danny Ings this season. I think he'll notch 12 or 13 goals over the course of the season. And as a striker, that'll be enough just to help them beat the drop. I think if they're going to have any chance, it's because they have a goal scorer like him. I don't think that in the absence of Troy Deeney, Watford have a goal scorer like that. Andre Gray has not done the job.
No, he's not. And he was half decent for Burnley, but since he moved to Watford...
He's a championship player, mate.
Yeah.
Right, we'll move on. We'll talk about those two teams a little bit. Norwich Arsenal, Joe, and actually what was an incredibly entertaining game.
It really was, yeah.
Having watched that, end to end basketball stuff. Arsenal going forwards looked very, very good. Going backwards looked awful. Norwich looked a little bit better going forwards and a little bit more tame. Or sorry, looked a little bit better going backwards, but looked a bit more tame going forwards. They seemed a bit more balanced. Is it a good result for Norwich, drawing at home to an Arsenal team in transition?
Yeah, it is.
Is it a good result for that Arsenal team in transition going to Norwich?
No, it's not. It's 2 points dropped. Arsenal had...
Having come from behind in the game, 2 points dropped.
It's a poor result. It shows character. Listen to what I'm going to say. Arsenal had several chances in the opening half hour to kill the game off. Arsenal should have been 3-1, 4-1 up at half time.
I only saw the second half, I'm going to say now.
No, it was all Arsenal in the first half. Arsenal were playing arguably the best football. It was the first time in 6 weeks that I've seen Arsenal actually play free-flowing attacking football. It was great. Second half was an absolute joke. Could barely string, inviting Norwich.
The second half that I watched was a joke.
Oh, it was a complete joke. Inviting Norwich on,
and that's why I think Norwich will be almost upset they didn't take something from it. Cantwell looks a fantastic player, doesn't he?
He looks decent.
He's got a lot of... I know you're a bit sore from the weekend that's just happened, but I mean, he was good against Liverpool as well. He is a handy player.
Do you know what?
And I think England have produced a few of these very talented attacking midfielders.
Yeah, the likes of James Maddison.
Madison, Grealish himself, and who's the Leicester... Brooks, is this the place for Bournemouth?
David Brooks, yeah.
Brooks seems very, very good in that role as well. Harvey Barnes. I know he's been shifted onto the left, but he plays a similar kind of role as well.
And it's a testament, I have to say, to the work that Gareth Southgate started as England under-21 manager.
Yeah.
And finally looking to learn from the continent.
At this stage last year, Cantwell had started 9 of Norwich's 20 games. Not even 1 in 2.
In the
championship.
Yeah.
How far has he come as a player?
A long way.
Do you think he could be tipped with a big move?
I think he needs to carry on the form that he's set over the past few weeks for the rest of the season.
If Norwich, currently 19th in the league, 11 points from 14 games, they look set to go down. If they do go down, is he one that clubs will say, we might get him in on the cheap and we can look after him? I think most teams in the league would be happy to have him as a reserve player.
I completely agree with you, yeah. I don't know about the top 6. I think
he's English as well, he boosts that quota, and he's one that can be worked with. He seems to have a real touch of class about him, man. I love watching him.
He does.
He's one of my favourite players to actually watch.
It was a great finish. He took it so well. He opened his body up and he just tucked it into the...
Thierry Henry, like...
It was Thierry. Well, that was Thierry Henry's classic finish, wasn't it?
He is a classy player, and I think he'd do well at... I think most clubs would be happy to have him as a young player coming through. I think maybe the pressure might be a bit too much for him playing week in, week out for Norwich. But I think if a big team had him loaned out to Norwich right now, they'd be very happy with what they were seeing.
Yeah.
You probably want to talk a little bit more about Arsenal. We'll talk about them in the previews because we do want to get through the games from last weekend. Wolves, Sheffield United, what we thought was probably going to be the game of the weekend.
Yeah, 2 teams that play in the right way. Well, there's no... You could say there's no right way to play football, but they set their teams up well. They play good progressive passing and they're good defensively as well.
Wolves, the home team, were the better team in this game. Sheffield United hit them early on with a sucker punch, and
Doherty got them back into it. Yeah.
The Sheffield United seemed to kind of set up their stall, which is unlike them the way they played this year, and seemed to kind of protect what they had.
Well, to be fair, they're away from home against Wolves.
But it's interesting seeing what Wolves do with the ball because traditionally they like to counter attack as well. So. They managed to get themselves a result, and probably 1-1 between those two teams is fair considering how they performed this season.
I'm not too surprised. Wolves are... They draw a lot of games.
Both managers would have known that could have been a sticky game. That's the kind of game they could lose.
Yeah.
It's also the kind of game they can win. Now, interestingly, that leaves Wolves on 20 points in 6th and Sheffield United in 19 points on 7th.
Yeah, they're both playing very well.
They are. Both high up the table. A game that I didn't really wanted to lose in terms of momentum. I'm not surprised it was a draw. Probably should have backed the draw last week.
You know what? It'll be interesting to see how both of these teams emerge in the Christmas period.
I think so. Now, obviously, Sheffield United don't have Europe to contend with, and it'll be interesting to see how far Wolves go, and if they do actually start to go places, where they prioritise the Premier League. Because we've seen teams before in the Europa League stop caring about the Premier League once they know they're safe if they have a chance at a European run. Obviously, fuck it, why not?
Yeah. I think that Nuno will go for both. As a manager who's
managed in Europe before, obviously with Porto and Valencia. I think that he'll definitely think that he can do something in the Europa League. And I think that Wolves have every chance of progressing. They've already got out of that group, and at the same time, I think that they have a decent enough squad. It's not.
What will be their target domestically?
Same again, 7th, 8th, top 10 finish.
Currently 6th.
Yeah.
Behind Spurs, ahead of Arsenal, ahead of Man U, ahead of Sheffield United.
Yeah.
There's Burnley and Palace as well. Bournemouth, West Ham. Where do they need to finish to qualify for Europe again next year?
They need to finish 7th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So top 7.
Yeah.
So if Arsenal break into that top 7, which you'd imagine they will, I'm sure you're praying to God they will.
I'm praying to God to be
that pushes Wolves. 4. Yeah. So look, if Arsenal manage to get themselves ahead of Wolves, that leaves them 7th.
Do you know what?
With Sheffield United, Burnley, and Palace and United. So if they've got to stay ahead of one of Arsenal or Manchester United this season, as well as the chasing pack of Burnley, Palace, Sheffield United.
I think they have it in them to do that,
as well as competing in Europe.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll sign anyone in January? Will they strengthen? They do seem to have a little bit of money behind them, Wolves.
No, because I don't think that there's unless they get an injury, because there's just not. January's not a popular time to buy players. There's not any good science indicating that January is a great time to invest in the squad.
Fernando Torres was bought in January for Liverpool.
No, he wasn't.
Who was bought?
Suarez.
Suarez was bought in January for Liverpool. Yeah.
So was Andy Carroll.
To replace Fernando Torres, though, at the same time.
Yeah.
That was because of outgoings, and that's what it was. Leicester beat Everton 2-1. Joe, in what actually was a brilliant performance from Everton, right up to the point where Vardy equalised.
They finally showed a bit of discipline.
Well, they were quite good against City last month, or a month or so ago. But I mean, one performance every 5 or 6 weeks, it doesn't really cut the mustard, does it?
I was saying this about Marco Silva's Everton on my feature piece during last week, that there's just been no consistency. They will have they have a win kind of every 3-4 games, but that's not enough.
Did we make this comparison last week between Bournemouth and Everton in terms of inconsistencies?
Yeah, well, we said that Bournemouth, they have their good periods and bad periods in blocks, and
Everton are more week to week, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
A bit like West Ham at the minute. Well, they're not blocky, but traditionally West Ham are week to week like that.
Yeah, well, you don't know what you're going to get.
Hot and cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for a club the size of Everton, with the money they've invested,
he's doing a poor job.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. That being said, this Leicester team are very good.
Joe, after 14 games, Everton have 14 points,
and they're in 17th place.
That is relegation form.
It is relegation.
You say they've got to get 40 points to stay up. They're on course for 38.
Yeah. I think over the last few years, it hasn't quite been up that 40-point mark, but that's kind of the benchmark. It's way low. They came 8th last year, and that would be considered,
a poor finish.
One place too low.
One of my favourite other places to listen to football is The Guardian. Football Weekly, which is fantastic. And for years they've been referring to the Everton Cup, which is essentially the best of the rest outside the top 6. It's the 7th place trophy. Yeah. They've called the Everton Cup for years.
Right.
I mean, Everton have surrendered the Everton Cup this year by all means.
In a big way. And it's likely going to go to Arsenal or Manchester United.
Well, if
they're lucky. No, I know what you mean.
Everton stock have fallen. Like we spoke about good planning from Leicester, who were promoted in 2014.
Yeah.
Everton finished 5th that year.
Yeah. And Everton have not planned well. They had a change of ownership since then, and I think that the Everton fans can be very unhappy with the direction that the club has taken. It's been kind of a mid-table Galacticos policy. Signing Alex Iwobi for £35 million, Richarlison for £50 million. Richarlison looks half decent. But
it got to the point midweek where 16th place Everton, their fans, well, not all of their fans, several of their fans wanted them to lose the game against Leicester.
Oh, because of Liverpool.
Because Liverpool were flying so high at the top of the league.
No. Where they are right now.
In late November.
Yeah.
Well, the game was the game Sunday? Yeah, the game was Sunday. So first of December.
Yeah.
They were already giving up on their own season.
Shocking.
Yeah,
but they're not the only ones.
No, they're not. But I mean, in a league that is so competitive,
and it is so up and down.
Like, in any other season, they'd be fighting for European place.
If they get a series of wins, if they can put some form together, they could be back up.
What are they? 14, Sheffield are 19. They're only 5 points off 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah. We both spoke at the same time there. 5 points off 7th, 6 points off 5th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, it's all still there for them. A couple of good games, good performances. Like if they can play like that every single week, Leicester is a hard place to go.
Yeah, it is.
Liverpool still have to go to Leicester, and a lot of Liverpool fans are bricking that. Because if they lose to Leicester, there's only a 5-point gap at the top of the table.
Yeah.
And that is a big concern for the best team in the league. So to go there, to be winning for so long and to put in that performance is brilliant. And if they were to put in that performance every single week, they'd find themselves climbing the table very, very quickly. But the issue with Everton is that it's not every week. So Everton go to play Liverpool away on Wednesday.
Merseyside derby.
Which isn't ideal. They say form goes out the window. We'll talk about it in a little bit. We've got one more game to preview though, or to review, apologies. Manchester United Villa.
I think that Villa could be quite hard done by in this. I thought they were much the better team.
United have been rubbish the last couple of
They've
weeks
been
and they've
shocking.
stolen 2
They've
results.
been shocking.
They've stolen a couple of draws.
Yeah. Against Sheffield United had to beat them. United had one 10-minute period.
You
where
put
they
up a
played
poll
all
on
right.
Twitter today asking whether or not United should sack Ole, and I think the only people voting no were fans of other teams.
Yeah, well, we had Craig from the Same Old Arsenal podcast. It's a great podcast. Yeah, very, very good one, which I like to watch. And he commented on it saying that they should definitely keep Ole in. So I think that everyone's saying keep him in. Rival fan.
Exactly.
For sure. I think that even the United fans, you'd be hard to find
too many that are delighted with the job he's doing, especially while the likes of Mauricio Pochettino are available. Because I think that's the man they've wanted for years, isn't it?
Well, he's the one whose name always comes up.
But there was talk of them not being able to buy him out of the Spurs contract and having to negotiate with Levy and things like this.
Right.
He's available as a free agent now, and that's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
I think a lot of United fans want action now.
Yeah.
While they are only...
They're 9th.
8 points off 4th. It's not impossible with the form that Chelsea are showing, the up and down, you know. If they were to act quickly, a handful of games before Christmas, suddenly that gap is only 4 or 5 points, new manager boost, who knows what could happen.
Yeah.
Whereas I think anybody watching United at the moment, like, I mean, I didn't see all of the Villa game. I saw the goals from it, but I watched all of the Sheffield United game, and if anyone that watched that game was happy as a United fan with the performance that they put in, God help them.
How far have Arsenal and United fallen over the last few years? It's
well,
shocking.
I mean, it's not really over the last few years though. It's been building for a very long time, and it happened to Liverpool where they declined for a long time, and there is this sudden change. And I think both of those clubs, Arsenal and Manchester United, need a change of ownership more than anything.
I think more so in the case of Manchester United.
Well, with the money being taken out of Manchester United, but I think the complicated structure of fingers in pies at Arsenal, they seem to have different directors that seem to have too much of a say. They've got a father and a son that both seem to have equal say.
Well, there's that. Yeah, well,
they've got Edu in as a director of football. They've got even what's his name?
No, Gazidis gone. They've got Raul Sanyehi, who's the head of football relations.
So there's Sanyehi, Eddie, and the 2 Cronkies, and they all seem to have their own voices about it. And the Cronkies are meant to speak together. They said when the son, what's his name? Josh says, when I speak, I'm speaking for my dad. When my dad speaks, I'm speaking for him.
Yeah.
They seem to be united in a way. But then you've got Raul and you've got Edu that seem to all have their own slightly different agendas, and they all seem to be able to veto different moves, and they all seem to be able to talk about management. And there just seems to be too much going on at Arsenal. There's not one voice leading the club.
I do agree with that. I will say that I think that Josh does speak for the Cronkies, and that Stan Kroenke's interest is very much based back in the NFL.
Yeah.
And that Josh Kroenke, although I'm sure he's a huge NFL fan, the Arsenal is his project.
The EPL a little bit more.
But he came down to the training ground the other day and he gave a speech that he addressed the players, and I think that he needs to do more of that. I actually think that he's all right. There's a lot of hate. They get a lot of hate. I think that Josh Kroenke has shown over the past year that he does care, and that What I'd like to see is him stay in London for the rest of the season and, you know,
a bit more hands-on management.
Oversee the next head coach appointment and, you know, make that transition into becoming the next Arsenal head coach as easy as possible.
We really are running out of time, but I'm going to ask you very quickly.
We are, yeah.
Who do you want in as the next Arsenal manager? And look, Brendan Rodgers came out today, rubbished it, said he's not going. He's happy at Leicester.
Right, yeah.
Not happening. So he's out.
I don't think that he's out.
He said that he's out. Leicester aren't going to let Arsenal negotiate with him.
He has a buyout clause.
Who knows what it is? And Arsenal have...
Ornstein
came out and said that Arsenal are looking to sign someone that's a free agent at the minute. They're not looking to buy somebody out. And he's normally pretty reputable when it comes to Arsenal stuff.
The two that stand out in that case are Pochettino and Allegri.
With both of those, there are complications as well. Allegri was interviewed in 2018 and it was deemed that he didn't seem interested. He was very blasé about the whole thing. There are questions about his English, which you highlighted last week on the pod as one of the biggest issues under Emery's reign, was the lack of fluent English. And I think that Pochettino, there's been lots of talk saying that he does not want the Arsenal job because of his Spurs connections and he's holding out for either the Real Madrid job or the Manchester United job. So if those two are off the cards, who's next?
Rafa Benitez manages his last game this Sunday.
His last game?
Yes.
I thought he has another year left, does he not? I heard him interviewed in the BBC last week. He's got another year left.
I heard that his last game of the season is on.
He's got another year.
And he never breaks
always honoured his contract.
Yeah,
he's never broken contract, and he's quite proud about that as well.
Yeah. My first choice would have been Rodgers.
He has. I don't think that at least until the end of the season he's not going anywhere. But I would be incredibly surprised if he upped and left the project he's working on at Leicester for Arsenal right now, considering everything that's going on at the two clubs. So, who's going to take that Arsenal job?
It's a very tough call. The one person that I don't want is Mikel Arteta because he has no managerial experience.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk that's saying they need a strong personality in the Arsenal.
They do.
Changing room to come in, someone with experience.
Yeah, they do. Badly. They need someone who can come in and manage the egos and manage.
Do you know who's a free agent at the minute?
Who?
He's got about 25 years experience in the Premier League. At the top end, he's won numerous Premier League trophies.
Ferguson.
Arsene Wenger.
No, he's got a job with FIFA now. You could never. Jesus Christ! If Arsene Wenger is, I would rather Freddie Ljungberg on a permanent contract.
Man, it is a very high possibility, and I would not be surprised if he took the job until the end of the season. Because as we've just discussed, it doesn't seem like there's an obvious candidate to come in and take over.
The options just aren't there either.
So I don't.
I've been. Brendan Rodgers would be the one that I really want. Allegri. There are some question marks over, I think. I have obviously heard about how his interview went down, and it seemed that he was arrogant and that he...
Blasé. And the English thing as well is a massive thing, though.
Yeah, no, I have heard that he's been learning English, but, you know, Emery spoke English when he arrived, but his English was shocking, and he couldn't get his point across. You need someone who's fluent. You really do. It's a very tough call. I can't put one name on it outside from saying that Rodgers would be the one that I would go after the most. I'd break the bank for him. I would take Pochettino as well because I think that he elevated Spurs to that next level. He brought them from a Europa League side at best to a consistent Champions League side, getting to the Champions League.
The other name that I have heard linked is Luis Enrique.
He's gone back to Spain.
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
He's taken that job?
Yeah. The other one I've heard is Nuno Espirito Santo. But
well, that actually is a talking point as well. I mean, he's done a good job at Wolves, and you spoke very highly of him only a few minutes ago. The job that he has done.
Yeah, I like him. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
So, considering everything that we've just spoken about, if they were to appoint a permanent manager this season, a realistic permanent manager, he'd be the guy.
I'm not saying he would be the guy. I'm saying that I wouldn't be disappointed. The only one out of the ones I've mentioned that I would be disappointed with would be Mikel Arteta. Yeah. I'd be very. I would want to. I'd get behind him. I'm never going to say I'd
former club captain.
Yeah, but for what? Like he barely played when he was club captain. Barely played. He was there for 4 seasons, and when we were in the Champions League, but like he barely played when he was club captain, and I didn't think he was a very good player. I would have preferred someone else in that midfield position.
A couple of other former players linked are Patrick Vieira, who's not done especially well in managing at all.
He's 15.
Henry really hasn't done well in managing at all.
I don't want a former player.
Yeah.
No, full stop. Definitely.
And that applies to Ljungberg as well.
I would take Lundberg as interim. I don't want him to get the full-time job. I don't think that's fair on him, and I don't think that's the sort of caliber that we need.
We'll move on quickly. I'm gonna show some games that you can just give me some results because we're already an hour into the pod.
Yeah, we are.
Crystal Palace host Bournemouth, Joe.
Palace to continue their form, 2-1.
Yeah, Bournemouth have been quite poor. Well, you say continue their form. That was their first win in 5.
Yeah, they won.
Yeah.
So to continue
winning ways. What did you say? 2? Was
2-1, yeah.
2-1. I'm gonna say 1-0 Palace. Burnley, Man City.
3-1 Man City. Defensive problems still not sorted.
I am gonna say that game is gonna be 2-2.
That effectively rules Man City out of the title race if they haven't been ruled out already. But it is just December 2nd.
A lot of things can change. Yeah. Look, like I said last week, I don't think that City are Liverpool's biggest contenders at the top of the league.
Yeah,
I think that at the moment that's Leicester. If Leicester fall off, Liverpool have run away with it.
Yeah.
I don't think that City are going to win the league this year. There's a lot of talk that they're putting their eggs in the Champions League basket. Maybe that's the one that they really do want to win, but I don't think they're going to win the Premier League this year. Chelsea host Aston Villa. Joe, do you expect them to bounce back?
No, I'm gonna go for a draw.
Villa have been tough to beat recently.
I think Villa have been improving. I'll go for another 2-2 for Villa. I think Tyrone Mings is a great player, very promising. And Grealish, oh my God, his goal.
I can see Chelsea bouncing back. I can see a 2-1 Chelsea win. Leicester Watford, second versus bottom.
Yeah, I'll go for another Leicester win to make it 7 in a row.
Score?
2-0.
Yeah, I can see a big one here. 4-0. 4-1. United Spurs. Probably the big game of the weekend. Or the midweek even.
Oh dear. I'm going to go for a Spurs win. I think they're going to win 3-2.
In Old Trafford?
Yeah.
You love a 3-2. Jose back.
He knows United better than Ole.
That's probably fair, actually.
Well, he knows that United squad better than Ole. Let's not get things twisted.
That would be huge if Jose was to go back there with Spurs and win.
I think it's very Jose.
That would be absolutely massive, wouldn't it?
How Jose is that?
He'll do a little bit of this as well, will he? Probably at the end, walking off.
We'll have a new gift.
Ed, how are you, Ed? Yeah, I don't see it happening. I think United have just been grinding out draws, man. Been playing badly, grinding out draws.
Spurs have been a draw.
Spurs have been a little bit soft at the back. I think Jose will not want to lose that game. I think this will be the first time we see him park the bus. 1-1 for me. Big game. Nobody's going to want to lose that one. Another fucking huge 6-pointer at the bottom of the table. Yeah. Southampton host Norwich.
Yeah.
This is a big one, man.
I think Southampton are going to get back-to-back wins, actually. Although Norwich played well against Arsenal, I'm going to go for another 2-1 Southampton.
Purely because Southampton are at home, I'm not going to argue with you. But, man, I think, again, this is another one the teams don't want to lose. I think there's such an emphasis on not losing games. I know Norwich seems to just go hell for leather, regardless of who they're playing. But I think Southampton will be a bit more conservative. I'm going to say 1-1 again. I know, man, I'm being really boring today. Wolves, West Ham.
Two away wins in a week for West Ham. 2-1.
I think Wolves are going to take that, mate. I think it's going to be 2-1 Wolves. Merseyside Derby in Anfield.
2-0 Liverpool. Nothing too insane, but a comfortable win.
Do you think Liverpool do clean sheets? Fucking 2-1 Liverpool. They win every single game 2-1. If you think Spurs like a 3-2, Liverpool like a 2-1.
Yeah.
Man, I can't see anything other than a 2-1 for Liverpool in every single game at the minute. Sheffield United host Newcastle.
I'll go for a 1-0 Sheffield United win.
Sheffield United have been very good at home.
Yeah.
Good defensively. Newcastle poor on the road. You're going to say 2-1?
Yeah.
And I'm going to say 2-0.
No, I said 1-0.
Oh, 1-0. Sorry, apologies. Grand. I might even say... I'm going to even say 2-0. I don't think Newcastle are going to get one there. And your lads host Brighton in the Emirates.
3-1 Arsenal.
Yeah, Arsenal home win.
Yeah.
You know what? Brighton were okay against Liverpool. They're normally better at home. Arsenal over the last few years, is poor they've been, tend to be decent at home in the Premier League.
Yeah, but bearing in mind Arsenal haven't won since early October.
I'm gonna say 2-1, mate. Arsenal are gonna get some
get
points from
over
this
the
one.
line,
Yeah.
At last.
Right, so that concludes the previews anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, I've enjoyed that.
Me too. Went longer than I thought it would, actually.
Yeah.
Got a lot of content done.
Well, man, it's that time of year.
It is. We're going to be busy over the next few weeks. Hopefully I'm going to be back during the week with a midweek show, and I think that you're going to be back to review.
Probably towards the end of the week.
Yeah.
Well, you might have your feature piece. I'll do a review show of these games, possibly a preview show. Oh man,
It's all happening.
it's all happening. It's all kicking off, guys. We'll have loads more content for you this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please, as always, remember to subscribe to us on YouTube. I ask you every single week, and lots of you don't do it.
Well, we did have a surge of 10 viewers a couple of weeks ago. but-
Huge.
Yeah.
Guys,
we need to get that up. We need to get
we
that
do.
up quickly.
Please. If you are one of the people that watches this show from start to finish or listens on Spotify or through another platform, thank you so much. But please go over to YouTube and subscribe to us so we know who you are.
Yeah.
Send us some comments, some messages, some emails, some carrier pigeons, whatever it is. We'd love any sort of interaction at home.
Share the content around.
Share the content around, exactly.
Yeah.
That'd be absolutely fantastic. Provided Joe does not have a tree drop on him between now and next week, we'll be back. Thanks for joining me, Joe.
Been a pleasure, Rafe.
Cheers. Thanks for joining us at home, guys. We've been the PFP. As always, thank you and goodbye.